I am hearing an awful lot of echo in one place or another.
You know what? On Radio 4, it's never like this. On Radio 4 just works seamlessly.
Have you been in there and tested that for yourself, though?
Well, I've not been there when they start it all up. When they start winding up at 5 o'clock.
That's the thing.
Apparently, I'm very blocky.
You are quite blocky, yes, but
It's funny, isn't it? How sometimes it seems to choose someone to be blocky out of the four of us. To myself,
You do with choosing me, seeing as there's nothing to see.
Yes.
right. I'm just going to turn Lee down by about 80% because he's super, super loud.
Am I? Oh, God.
No, it's fine. We can deal with it. It's good. It means that you will have a nice, strong signal. But can you guys hear the massive echo?
I can hear background.
I can hear
Yeah,
it.
I can hear a low. Yeah, I can hear that low buzz again. But is that you still plugged in, Darian?
No?
It's
not
no,
me.
it's more like an aircon kind of.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, do
wait. You might be
That's a
hearing my
humidifier.
room heater. I've turned that off now.
Yeah, that
That's
was
it.
it.
What's it?
I'll just have
Lee's
just have
far
to
too
get
quiet now.
cold.
I'm too quiet.
Oh, he's
Paul,
perfect for me.
Paul, I can confirm that I'm on wired. So any issues, it's just life, really.
I can barely hear Lee
Uh,
when he's talking.
Lee's webcam isn't working.
I've
Anybody
got two
who's-
of them as well. That's the really annoying thing.
Does
I'm
he,
wired,
does
yeah.
he not
I'm
sound
always
quiet
wired.
to everybody else then? Because I can
You
barely
sound,
hear him.
you sound really quiet to me, Barry.
And
I
for
know
me,
that's not a helpful thing to say.
for me, the echo is ridiculous. I make a noise and I hear it back at like 80% volume a quarter of a second later.
So yes, let's just hear from people. So Col is saying that Lee and Barry are a little bit quiet.
Right,
Okay.
hold on.
Well, Barry's at maximum volume, so unless he's got a knob.
Always.
Okay.
Right, if I whack that up there.
That's better, Lee.
Is that better? There we go. I'll twist me. What's it? There we go. Lovely.
No echo. Lee is very deep. He is very deep, isn't he?
Very
chap.
deep. No.
As a person.
Deep, very deep, very deep.
Are you a kind person, Lee?
Sorry? Am I a
you're the
kind
kindest.
person? I try to be. I try to be kind.
2.5 minutes past 1 o'clock, by the way, just to...
Oh, okay. But well, no, only because we were fiddling around with the levels.
I know, but let's maybe not get...
Are you happy for us to start?
I mean, it doesn't sound great to me, but I might be able to do some magic in there. I might be able to do some magic in the edit. I don't think there's anything we can usefully do that is guaranteed to provide a quick solution. So if it sounds all right to you lot on Discord, Ali Kelman says it seems okay, then fine.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. It is. Have we just lost Barry?
We,
Oh,
God.
Thursday
you
the
leave-
13th.
did you leave the blue M&Ms in his bowl again? I've told you about that. Stop it. Causes him all sorts of stress.
There we go.
he's back.
Maybe Barry. What
Sorry.
happened to you, Bazza? Did you press the wrong button?
Because I'm having to use Wi-Fi, and it's because I'm upstairs. So yeah, I dipped out.
Okay. All right. And okay. Here we go again. Here we go again. Hello and welcome to the PC Pro podcast. It is the 13th of March 2025. Which podcast is this, Lee? How many have we done now?
This is number 723 if we get to the end of it.
Okay, 723, and can I just say, we are still just as rubbish at setting it up as we have always been. Proud to be rubbish. PC Pro's tagline. Right, who do we have? We have, obviously, as you just heard, Mr. Lee Grant. Hi,
Good
Lee.
afternoon.
We've got Darian Graham Smith.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. And the bestubbled Barry Collins.
Hello.
Hello. Right, well, I think what we should do is kick off because we're already about running 5 minutes late, and we're going to kick off, Lee, with you.
Yeah, now a few weeks ago, Framework, the laptop manufacturer, held their second generation event. Now that's the type of thing where tech manufacturers sort of take to the stage, display their new products to whooping shrieks and synchronized pant wetting of a faithful live audience, that sort of thing. This one is a little different though. Framework's CEO, Nirav Patel, he opened the show by pulling out the new Framework 13-inch laptop, which looks exactly the same as every other 13-inch Framework laptop that they've ever built. Patel said at the time, we're probably the only company that can announce a product that looks the same 4 years in a row and get cheers every time. And that is really the point, because Framework is only new because it has the AMD's latest sort of Ryzen AI 300 processor inside it. It's the insides that are different. It's not the outside. The rest of the machine is largely unchanged. And, like I say, that's very much the point. And it's where Framework really, its offer differs from every other OEM that I can think of. So let's start with the Framework 13, which you can now have it with a Ryzen AI 300 starting at just over £1,000 pre-built with Windows, or you can get it for just under 900 quid if you want to build it yourself and without a Windows license. If you already have a Framework 13 and feeling a bit sulky about this, then you're in luck. Because, of course, you've bought a Framework, and for about 500 quid, sorry, no, actually, that's wrong, 449, you can upgrade because they'll sell you the board. So you just take your board out, put that board in, and bizarre, you have the new Framework. It is that good. They make all their stuff to be physically compatible with the old stuff. Now, the Framework's USP is not only that it sells products, it also has a fully stocked parts store, and it's built for repair, and it's all in with upgrades, customization. They have repair guides, documentations, and a really sort of friendly community. And these things are really easy to work on because they've been designed to be so. I always think of Framework, it's like if iFixit made laptops, you would get Framework.
Yeah, where are they actually based, Lee? I know obviously they're based in America, but
San Francisco.
They are San Francisco, are they? Okay, that makes sense.
I believe that's certainly where the event was, and it seemed to be sort of very near to their base.
But just to be clear, you were not flying out to Framework's event to watch this. This was over the YouTubes of this world that you viewed it, I believe.
It was the YouTubes, and the Framework PR person asked me if I was attending, but I explained there wasn't a bus from Huddersfield. I guess they didn't understand that. But,
no. Did you get a laugh from Eric or not really?
Oh, yeah, Mr. Schumacher, yes, absolutely, yes. He's a very nice man.
He is a nice man.
He is a nice man.
And just okay, let's not go down that route because that doesn't make for a good podcast.
Probably not.
But just the Framework Laptop 13, just to say to people who've never heard of Framework before, this is a nice looking laptop. It's not exceptional looking, but it's pretty slim. We have reviewed it previously, the chassis in PC Pro, so you can go back to old issues if you wish. I would say it's a solid, decent mid-range, ultra portable laptop, around 1.2 kilograms, and so that's what you're buying into. And as you say, it can keep on upgrading. And so what else did they have to say, Lee?
Very briefly, they touched on they have a bigger one, unsurprisingly, called the Framework 16, and this was really not a lot to say about from their keyboards, because the keyboard seems to be the big thing about the 16. If, for example, you can really specify what you want. If you want the number pad on the left, for example, that can be done. They've got a new innovation called the One Key module, where basically it's a self-contained mechanical and electrical laptop key switch. That might not sound that exciting, but the idea is basically you can build your own keyboard. They'll sell you a PCB carrier board, and you basically plug in your own keys and you have what you want. And this is really aimed at hardware devs. And because you can fit the 16 with things like LED matrices and e-ink displays on the keyboard and stuff like that. So this is really for people that where QWERTY isn't a thing, and it just shows that because of the way that Framework build their stuff, there is huge amounts of versatility. But the laptops, the 16s and the 30s, are really not where this whole presentation was.
No, hang on a second though. I need to gauge a level of excitement from Barry, because we mentioned keyboards, and Cole asked us on Discord, bcpro.link/Discord. Come and join us every Thursday, 1 PM live. Everything goes seamlessly. And Cole said that will excite Barry when he started talking about custom-made keyboards. Barry, did that excite you?
I like the idea of being able to move your number pad from left to right, because as the podcast nominated lefty, that can be quite annoying. So I think that's a very good idea. The rest of it, yeah. I mean, it's nice to have some control over laptop keyboards that absolutely nobody else offers, or very few offer. So yeah, I'm behind it.
Okay, not excited, Cole. I think that's what I would generally take from that. But sorry, carry on, Lee. I interrupted you. The big news was...
The big news, really, I suppose, was that they developed a desktop, which you can buy pre-built or as a kit. Now, this is unusual for Framework because obviously they're known for their laptops, but there's a whole rationale about why they've done it, which I won't go into because we'll be here for a week. So I'll give you the basics, which is this thing uses the Ryzen AI Max processor, and I don't even have time to get to the bottom of this chip, but basically it's an up to 16 core Zen 5 40 CU Radeon RDNA 3.5 GPU, the 256-bit RAM bus, fitted with 128 gig of RAM. And this thing is split across sort of 3, possibly 4 nanometer FinFET dies. You know, it is really a smart bit of kit that AMD have got. Now, what makes it particularly nice is it's also packed with AMD's sort of latest gaming technology. Think of things like Fluid Motion, HyperRX, and FSR. And it's sort of to explain what a real kick-ass chip it was. Framework dragged on Frank Azor, who is AMD's consumer and gaming marketing bod. He also was the co-founder of Alienware, so this guy's got pedigree, and he was understandably sort of frothing about the gaming punch of this chip, because it doesn't use a discrete graphic card, it's all on board, but they're saying with some of the stuff that's going on, playing certain games, the frame rates are really quite exceptional. I guess the benchmarks will tell eventually. But this isn't being sort of pushed as a gaming machine on its own, because they're also looking squarely at AI users, really sort of laying on that this thing can run sort of Llama 3 and DeepSeek sort of really quite nicely. They make the point that because it also has 5 gigabit Ethernet and USB 4, you can network them together, and they even release a rack mount so you can bolt a few of them together. Or if you just want to buy the boards for these things, you can bolt those together as well to have even more resource. And on top of this, they dragged out Anush Alangovan, my apologies if I've horsed that up. He's AMD's VP of AI, and he was talking about ROCm, which is Radeon Open Compute. That's AMD's version of CUDA, and they, so they're really sort of pushing this with AMD's backing towards the AI sort of frenetic crowd that was there. But I just wanted to sort of underline that AMD were very much part of this event. And that's where, for me, things really got interesting, and why I think I looked at Mr. Nirav Patel and thought, I like the cut of your jib, because where they're aiming this desktop is firmly at the Mac Studio 128 gig range, which is priced in at about $4,500 in dollars. So they've put this Framework desktop starting at a very competitive $1,999, which is a heck of a price for what you're getting. And interestingly, the chip uses basically soldered in RAM, not modular RAM. AMD Framework wanted AMD to do it, and AMD said they couldn't do it. And so Nirav Patel stands on the stage with AMD in the wings and says, the RAM is not upgradable and we didn't want to rip people off. I mean, that's a statement to make when the people that made your kit are in the sidelines. He's also actually released a blog post this week explaining this a little bit more, making also the quote said, we accepted the trade-off of using soldered memory, and unlike some electronic brands, aren't using that as an excuse to charge obscene sums for higher memory capacity. So they're really sort of open about the fact that this Studio is a great machine, but it's still not quite what they want to build, because they want a way that you can design the so you can change the RAM. But AMD tried but couldn't.
Okay, it's so. For you, though, Lee,
Yes.
someone who's been cursed really by
Thank you.
By many things, but particularly by the fact that so many laptops these days do actually include soldered RAM, I'm surprised you're not a little bit more anti this.
There's really not a lot you can do. So much stuff is not a lot you can do from their perspective. If they want to run this piece of kit, this is as it is. And a lot of these high-end stuff, I mean, look at all of Apple stuff, all the RAM is built in. You have to hope that a lot of that stuff has a little more durability than some of the mass-produced stuff. But yeah, it's not a good thing, and Framework are acknowledging it's a good thing, and they're acknowledging it's a good thing standing before AMD who have built the damn thing. So, there is hope that at some point they may turn around and say, look, actually, AMD have gone away, and they've fixed this, and they've done it, and they're using LP CAM or something like that. Apparently, AMD tried, but they couldn't get their memory bandwidth up.
Right. Just very, very, very quickly, do you want to explain what LP CAM is?
Low compression attached memory module. It's the new version of SODIMM.
Yeah, and the idea of being also is meant to be sleeker. than SODIMM. So in the quest, it's to help the manufacturers still build very slim laptops, but also have replaceable components. That's one of the ideas that it's meant to solve. One of the problems it's meant to solve, I believe. Lee,
Yes,
correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. It also sits slightly nearer to the CPU to basically improve throughput.
Okay. Lee, do you have anything you wish to say? Sorry, Lee, Barry. Do you have anything you wish to say on this topic? Or should we just move on to really what is the big story, I think, this week?
Well, the only thing on the desktop, I'm less convinced by the whole framework model because desktops are quite modular and changeable anyway. So I don't know. It sort of leaves me a bit cold, that one. The laptops I completely get. This one, especially when they're doing things like soldering on the RAM, I understand what Lee says, but that for me, there are ways around that.
Lee, do you want to reply on behalf of Framework?
Yeah, they do. I mean, the thing with Framework is don't get too upset about it. This stuff is designed to be upgraded and changed. They'll bring out a board in another couple of years that might solve this problem. They've been very clever by making the board that goes in this desktop as a standard ITX board. So if you don't like it, you can take it out and put another ITX in of something else. For example, the cooling system that's been developed for this is done by Coolmaster and Noctua. They've really worked hard to make it as good as it can be, but they are being very open about this RAM and saying this isn't what we want. So I don't think you get another manufacturer that would say that. So I think though it is a problem, I absolutely get you, Barry. It's a problem that you'll find in most of the little machines that we review on this on this fine podcast.
Yeah, I get it. I just say if you're trying to be different and say everything we do is different, and then going, well, actually we wanted it to be something else, but it's not quite. That doesn't convince me. I think that's a bit weak, to be honest, from them.
Nick L on the podcast chat and Discord server says you can actually buy desktop cases for the laptop mainboards.
You can.
Which I hadn't realised.
And you can print your own. They've got lots of good stuff like that. The Framework community is really smart. There is one more bit of the announcement if you want me to squeeze it in.
I'd love you to ruin my segue. As you
was
did.
I about to? I'm sorry. All right, I'll shut up.
No,
Darren can cut that out, and I won't say
perfectly poised. Go on.
Because the last bit is actually the bit that I'm most excited about.
Okay.
Mr. Patel took to the stage and said, everyone deserves access to repairable, upgradable, long-lasting computers. Unfortunately, the people who are often stuck with the worst, most disposable, generic, crap-top computers are the ones that need it most. And at that point, he pulled out the new laptop 12. And I'm genuinely excited about this. It's a 12.2-inch, 1920 by 12/200, 400 nit touch with a pen, 10th laptop, 13th gen Intel, up to 48 gig of RAM, 2 terabyte storage, Wi-Fi 6E. I say, don't get too hung up about the specs. They'll have something else out soon. Comes in 5 colours.
They couldn't even hear the specs. I think people listening to this will have to slow you down to 0.75 times. But carry on.
But that's how I always listen to this show. so
Make
it
it last longer.
Absolutely. Look, it's a 13th gen Intel laptop. Don't get too excited. In a 12.2 inch chassis. It's their new product. What is really interesting about it, this thing has been strengthened to handle bumps and drops. I think this is really sort of being aimed at education, travellers, site workers, and it looks really smart. We haven't got a price at the moment. Pre-orders open for April, and one of the consequences of having all this modularity, repairability, spares, blah, 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 is that frameworks tend to be a bit expensive because really you're dealing with the real price of a laptop rather than the heavily subsidized, mass-produced stuff that you could argue are possibly a bit cheaper than they should be. So I think this one could, if they get it right, this one could be a bit of a winner. And in fact, Mrs. Grant's 7th gen Intel is on life support at the moment. She very much likes the look of this one, so there might be one coming into the Grant household pretty time soon. But like I say, orders are open soon.
Orders open soon, and actually for the desktop PC, is that the same soon?
They ship in May, but you can pre-order now.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Lee. A fine summary. Okay, The thing I wanted to talk about, I was going to talk about MWC, but that got massively kicked off because this news broke overnight, courtesy of, well, Barry pointed it out, but I think even I would have noticed that this happened, even if Barry hadn't mentioned it, which is that Intel has a new CEO. His name is Lip Bhutan, and again, I'm not quite sure about the pronunciation of that. He comes from Malaysia. He was born. How much history do you want? I wrote some notes.
Tim's found his Wikipedia page.
Yeah, citation needed.
Yeah. Well, okay. This guy. I'll briefly say he was. So the most recent things to be of note is that until November, I think it was last year or September anyway, he was a member of the Intel board, and he resigned from said board because he had disagreements with a certain person. Let's call them the chairman, Pat Gelsinger, and on how the company should be run. He felt there was far too much middle management, and that it wasn't moving fast enough, to grossly simplify. So anyway, he resigned, and he'd only been on the board for 2 years, but prior to that he'd had an incredibly successful career. And at this point, I will whiz back to his youth, because he's a clever guy. I've been looking at this. You know, when you read up about certain people, you feel so intellectually inferior. This was one of those occasions. I don't have that problem when I look at Barry's biography for some reason, but here, Lip Bhutan, he was born, like I say, 1959 in Malaysia, so he must be now coming up to 66, or he will be in November. By the age of 15, he was studying for his physics degree. What were you doing at 15, Barry?
Paper rounds.
Barry's doing a paper round, and Lip Bhutan was starting on his physics degree at the Singapore University, because he'd moved to Singapore during his childhood. And once he'd finished that degree, he went off to the MIT, naturally, to study nuclear engineering. So he graduates with a master's from there, and then he takes an interesting sidestep. Rather than going to academia, as you'd have thought he'd be very well suited, he studied for an MBA at the University of San Francisco. He does work in management in a nuclear energy firm in the 80s, but very rapidly, by the late 80s, he'd set up his own venture capital company. So this is where the MBA kicks in, I guess. And this is an incredibly successful company, which backed, for example, Creative, and I won't go through everything, not least because I haven't written it down, but basically, this guy is an entrepreneur, and he gets into semiconductors. He is part of the board of a company called Cadence Systems, and they make chip design software. And that is why Intel get him onto the board. So that's his background in a nutshell. Very, very, very clever guy. He knows his stuff. He's got a business angle, so he's got business smarts. He knows the foundations of what Intel is doing. He's worked for a chip software company. He's got everything basically in that background. Now, from an Intel perspective, and what I think we can read into the tea leaves at this point is that this is a sign, I think, that that they are absolutely backing the chip manufacturing side. So you may remember there's been a lot of speculation as to Intel being split up. Will it turn into a chip design company, but then have and spin out the foundry business, which it had been investing in? Or what would it kind of keep on going as it is? This suggests, because of his background in actual chip manufacture, that he wants to back that, and his opening statements very much suggest that too. So Barry, I don't know if you agree with that assessment, that this is, because the other way of looking at it is, well, it could actually be he's an interim guy, mid-60s, you know, how many years does he really want to stick around? Maybe he is going to be setting the company up to be split and sold. What do you reckon?
Well, given that we were told the board wanted to go in a different direction to what Ottolini did, I find it hard to believe they're now appointing somebody who wants to carry on in the same direction Ottolini did. So I wouldn't be so sure about that. I mean, maybe these are just generic opening statements, and to appoint somebody to run a chip company who's got a background in processors isn't the most outlandish thing in the world. So, I think we have to wait and see before we decide if it means a fundamental shift in strategy. But like I say, I find it hard to believe they're appointing somebody who's basically maintaining the status quo. Otherwise, why change?
Well, yes, but there is an argument. So one of the reasons why he resigned, but bear in mind that when he resigned, he did not say that he felt they should spin out the foundry. He felt that Intel should very much be continuing with that as their main policy, which is what makes me think that is probably where he's still coming from. But his frustration was that Intel was too slow getting rid of the middle management that weren't actually contributing anything, that were actually slowing down the process at Intel, stopping them being as innovative. So I think that's certainly, if you're an Intel middle manager at this point, then you should be polishing up your CV. But Darian, I'm sure you've got a view on this.
Yeah, I really liked Pat Gelsinger. He was like he was Intel through and through. He joined Intel when he was 18. He was the lead architect on the 486. And although he spent some time at EMC after he was, I'm not quite sure what was going on with the internal politics there. But yes, I thought he could be the Steve Jobs, as it were, of Intel coming back to rescue the company. So I was a bit dismayed when he was clearly ousted. But I do sort of see that perhaps because, as I say, Gelsinger was Intel through and through, and he was a company man. He was, he spent his most of his corporate career working in that one structure, in that one environment. And maybe, is it Mr. Tan? I'm not quite sure what the structure of his name is. Is it Mr. Lip-Bu or Mr. Tan? Anyway, Lip-Bu Tan, the new CEO, I'll have to learn this. He obviously has a much more varied background, much more of a wider interest, hopping from company to company, joining the board of Intel and resigning from it quite lightly, I would say. I mean, not because of any particular falling out, just as you say, because he thought, this isn't for me. So it could be that he's going to bring a nimbleness that the company has been lacking. As Barry says, he's just come in, so any statements that we have now could well just, be almost boilerplate, just what you'd expect from any incoming CEO taking on a job of this size. But I'm optimistic that maybe, because I think Pat Gelsinger was going in broadly the right direction, and this guy hasn't said, Gelsinger's steering us in exactly the wrong way. He just didn't like the weight of the, as you say, the middle management. So maybe this could be kind of Gelsinger plus. This could be the recovery plan that we were promised, but on steroids, or with its path cleared and greased for a faster arrival. I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Well, as are the markets, because since the appointment, they've gone up, I think, it's 12% was the figure I saw this morning. So that takes us, Barry, to a comment that was just on Discord, doesn't it?
What you're saying, because there's been a short-term bump in the share price. So Ian Ruston was saying a few weeks ago on here, I think it was Barry who said, now's not the time to buy Intel shares. So I bought £50 worth, steady on there, Alan Sugar, and it says it's a 10 up this morning. So yeah, let's not get too carried away with a short-term bump because they've appointed a CEO. I still think long-term they may be in a little bit of bother, but we'll see.
Lee, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, I saw this come in this morning, and as you said, Tim, this guy's clearly a capable person, phenomenal engineering mind. He's generated enough wealth to throw a few million at sort of various facilities and to encourage and support rising talent. He's on the boards of this, that, and the other. He's a deeply driven person. But the problem,
just to clarify, are you talking about Barry, or
I am talking about Barry? Yes, absolutely. My apologies. And the problem, as I see it, Intel has got some issues, particularly financial ones. They've got a debt of around 50 billion, and although their assets make this manageable, technically, the debt's rising. And in short, Intel needs something really special, and they need it reasonably quickly, and they also need all these billions are spent on fab plants to pay off. And Lip-Bu Tan is 65 years old. Gelsinger was 60 when Intel brought him back, and his reputation was earned when he was a VP when he was 32. And I say all this is a 50-year-old bloke, and I am not being ageist. This isn't about age. It's about energy, drive, ingenuity, ultimately motivation. I have to question how much of that a 65-year-old multi-billionaire really, really has, considering that Gelsinger was pretty much the same sort of profile. And Intel seems to have played this very safe after previously playing it reasonably safe and failing. And Littleton will bring valuable expertise and guidance to Excel. He will be brilliant. And maybe he's one of these hyper-driven people like Mick Jagger who is still gigging in his 80s. Age is just a number, but aging is not. And I wish on a daily basis I had the same energy as I did 20 years ago. And we'll see this weekend whether a 40-year-old Lewis Hamilton, can take the fight to 27-year-old, Charles Leclerc. I suppose what I'm trying to say is I see Littleton more as a Merlin rather than a King Arthur. Does that make any sense?
It does make a lot of sense, and I'm just marvelling at your widespread knowledge there, especially for such an aged man, Lee. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's okay. I don't know whether I think what we've seen. You just need to see look at the current president of the United States. See, whatever you may think of Donald Trump, he's got an amazing amount of energy and drive, and he's in his late 70s. I can't remember.
That's steroids.
So I think age is an attitude as much as it is the date on your birth certificates. I don't really take I'm going to disagree with you, Lee, basically is what I'm coming on to here, because he's got an incredible spirit by the looks of things. There is a question mark as to whether someone completely new could come in, someone in their 30s, 40s, I guess. Would that give Intel a fresh energy and drive? Perhaps. But I don't know. I think probably at this point, certainly, Intel needs a steady hand for 5 years.
Well,
so maybe he is that person.
If you look at the competitors, Lisa Su was 45 when she took over AMD. Jensen Huang started at NVIDIA at 30. Tim Cook was 37 when he got hold of Apple, and Cristiano Amon was 49 when he became CEO of Qualcomm. He's at the age where he should be putting his feet up, and I absolutely agree. Age is just a number, but I just, there comes a point with all of us where getting out of bed in the morning just makes more noise than it used to.
I take your point. Also, can I have you on my quiz team next time we have a quiz? Because your knowledge of people's age when they founded companies is quite remarkable.
Well, also wrong. Tim Cook's 64.
Yeah, I did want to get that one.
He is 64, but he was 37 when he started at Apple.
Not when he took charge.
No. Come on.
I started at PC Pro when I was 21, but that doesn't mean I'm still as vivacious 29 years later.
Yeah, but you still look 21, Barry. That's the important thing.
Bless you.
Okay. So I don't know quite where to go from this, because I feel like we could keep on digging, but as I slam my microphone. But instead, let us move on to the next story, which is with you, Darian.
Yes, this is about a company called Breathe Battery Technologies. You might have heard of them because they've actually been in the news a little bit over the past year or two, but they've bubbled up in particular because it's been announced that they are going to be contributing some firmware for the new Volvo ES90 sedan, which is an electric car. But they're also they're generally optimizing batteries for all sorts of devices, including smartphones and laptops. So I've got a little bit ahead of myself. Yes, they're a battery company. Rather, they're a battery firmware company, and what they do is, you've probably noticed that when you plug in your phone or your laptop, when it's completely empty, the first, say, 50% of charging goes at quite a fair lick, and then it slows down, and the last sort of 5% might take 20 minutes or longer to fill up, and also the battery may charge at different rates depending on what temperature it's at. There's all sorts of things which govern the speed at which batteries are charged, and the speed and the voltage is determined. Voltage and wattage, I should say, is determined by normally built-in lookup tables, which are provided by the manufacturers of the cells, companies such as Samsung or LG, who will say, for example, at a nominal temperature of 15 degrees C, you should use this many watts for this much time. Breathe Battery Technologies basically, as I understand it, they're kind of throwing that away, and they're saying instead of using these very simple kind of rudimentary lookup tables, we're going to generate much more precise chemical analysis of exactly how this precise cell will behave under certain conditions and also at different ages, and give your charging firmware all the information it needs to be able to treat that battery perfectly, so it will recharge at the maximum speed that it's safe to do. It will probably be faster than the lookup table because the lookup table will play it safe, but at the same time there will be much less danger of overvolting it, overwatting it, overheating it, so it will last longer. This all sounds like really good stuff. I mean, one of the things they're saying is that because it's based on an analysis of the chemicals, a better analysis of the chemicals themselves don't need to change. So you should be able to get faster charging and a longer lifespan from the exact same batteries that we're using today. The only thing I'm a little bit iffy about is that I've been kind of poring over their website and their press releases and the news. I can't find out exactly any specific details as to whether this is in fact an adaptive thing that involves monitoring the batteries at all times, or whether it is in fact just a better lookup table than the ones we were previously getting. The fact that I can't find that makes me suspect it's the latter. But still, if it's as good as it claims to be, and obviously it's impressed Volvo enough to build it into the next car. Breathe Battery Technology is also on a lot of Oppo phones right now. The CEO of Breathe, who is called Dr. Ian Campbell, says that with Oppo phones, they're now saying that the lifespan of the battery has been doubled from an expected 2 years at a certain threshold of battery capacity, doubled to 4 years at that same capacity for no extra expense in terms of the battery manufacturing, purely in software. It's all good, basically.
Yeah, I like how the story includes a picture of someone in a lab coat, because that always it's what you need in this kind of story.
Yep.
There is, I would say there is a theme going on at the moment. I'm stretching this back over 2 to 5 years, and I'm being possibly a bit generous, but that battery, as it was quite a stagnant technology in terms of, we had the move from nickel metal hydride to lithium polymer, and that was the only real thing I can think of in the past 30 years that's been a major breakthrough. But as in the past two or so years, we just seem to be getting there's momentum building up around battery concepts, about ways to improve our battery life, the ways to extend the actual overall life of our batteries, which I just think is something of note, and it's no use as a discussion topic. Barry looks sceptical, but that's Barry's natural look.
No, actually, I've written, Christ knows how many stories about new battery technologies over the past 20 years, almost none of which have ever made it. So
but that's what I mean. Sorry, go on.
But I was just going to say, it's good to hear one that is actually not based on some mythical physical property that is yet to be proven, but they're using software to get more out of the technology that we've already got. So, it's more encouraging on that front.
But because that's what I remember, Barry. I remember a lot of those stories, and you're quite right. You wrote a load of them about, this is so promising, but nothing ever really happened. But in I'm thinking about the Honor technology. I can't remember exactly the name of it anyway, but it's got they're using silicon in the batteries now, and that is not massively, but definitely improving densities. And you're seeing it also in cars. I think that's probably the biggest difference now, is that because we've got this need to drive electric cars, there's suddenly a lot more money to accelerate the process of turning this into actual finished technology, which hopefully we can all benefit from. Lee, I can't see you, so I have no idea whether you're bursting at the seams with thoughts or not.
I am bursting at the seams, but that's just overeating. Looking at the numbers here, 30% sort of increases is a bit of a big claim, but once Volvo sort of get this car out, I suppose we'll know. And as a project, this all sounds good. I agree with what everyone is saying. Making the batteries much smarter potentially, but adding sort of real-time dynamics to the lookup to improve performance. It all seems like a clever move. But if this is the solution, and it sounds like, and this is no disrespect to Breathe, it sounds like something other manufacturers could fix quite easily. And my main worry here for them is, particularly in America, is the DMCA. Do you remember a couple of years ago we covered a story about McDonald's ice cream machines, where a third-party company had basically developed a plug-in device which stopped them breaking down, and then court cases and copyright infringement things began to flow left, right, centre, and it all got really messy because basically you are not to mess with our machines. And I wonder if how Breathe market this. It sounds like they need to get some sort of manufacturer buy-in to be able to do this, rather than sort of, we could all go out and buy a Breathe device that we plug into our cars to suddenly get miraculous battery life. I wonder how far they can go with actually doing this sort of technology, if it is as easy as it says. You look at right to repair legislation, and power systems are usually the no-go area, and the DMCA is often successfully the stop sign for legislation in these areas. So well, we'll see.
We will, and congratulations on saying DMCA without breaking into song. All right, Barry. Anyway, Barry, what is the next item on the agenda, please?
It's AI. You'll be shocked to hear.
We nearly made it through a whole podcast.
Nearly got there. This is OpenAI, who this week have launched two new APIs. The first of which is the Responses API, and this basically gives developers access to many of the tools that have been introduced into ChatGPT over the past couple of years. So now, for example, you can use web search in your self-built apps, so you can ask an app to search the web in the same way ChatGPT can, and does that really well, by the way. There's the operator model, which we're yet to see over here in the UK, but this is that thing where it can take charge of your computer. So you can say, buy me a pair of Skechers shoes off of Amazon, and it goes off and finds the right shoes and does the order for you, at least in theory. And it also has the ability now to search local files. So if you've got, for example, customer records, customer purchase histories, you can have an app built in the API search those local forms of data. So if, for example, you're building a shopping assistant for your website, the shopping assistant can go off and say, hey, Barry ordered a pair of Levi jeans last week. Let's recommend a pair of Wranglers to him this week, or whatever. So they are combining all of these different facilities into what's called the Responses API, and this is now open for developers to build their own applications or build chatbots for their own websites on top of these APIs. The other one they're releasing this week is called the Agents SDK, and this basically combines those different agents into one SDK. So they gave an example where you could have a retail app, say. So the example I just gave, where I've got a shopping assistant on my website, and I might say to the app, can you help me do a refund on the shoes I bought last week? And the Agents SDK will be able to help you locate a specific agent that's trained to deal with refunds. So each of these different agents can have a different set of instructions, can have access to different sets of data. So, for example, the refunds assistant might have access to the past customer records, but you don't need to give it access to the web. It can have its own set of instructions on how to handle different scenarios. It can be, you can train it on past data from your own human agent calls to see how to answer different queries. So each of these different agents can be combined into one giant SDK, and you have this overarching what they call handoff facility, that if I come to the application and say, I'm looking for a refund on this, it knows that I should be talking to the refund agent, not the agent that tries to sew you new shoes or whatever. So this all sounds very, these facilities are now open to developers to see what they can do with them. OpenAI on their call said 2025 is going to be the year of the agent, and we're hearing this from pretty much every AI company going at the moment. And I think this is beginning to be like the opening shots in what's going to be a year of this kind of stuff.
Yes, there's definitely momentum building. But when we chatted earlier, Barry, or yesterday, about this, you also said that you felt that we weren't in the point where this was being put into the hands of the everyday person. This is actually right now being put into the hands of the developers, as opposed to the the mass populace.
Well, I think we're still at a very early stage. So for things like those the operator where it goes off and scours websites for you, you can tell that even in the demos of the early ones I've seen, this technology is still very rough around the edges. So if you're running, I don't know, Nike.com or any great retail site, Amazon, you're not going to be enabling that kind of facility yet, because I don't think it's at that stage where it's ready. But you can definitely see more of these AI agents where they're trained to do a certain job and they're more responsive to certain tasks. I think that is definitely going to be that is already happening, and I think we're going to see a lot more of that this year.
Darian?
Yeah, I've been slow to embrace this type of AI, well, most types of AI, but to bring it down to a very specific and personal instance, I've been locked in an argument with British Gas for the past 3.5 months now, and I've spoken to, I think, 14 different people. And if I could get an AI to do just to go through the annoying being passed from pillar to post and back again, that if it could just patiently explain over and over again to each person it gets to what the situation is and what we've just learned and what we now need to do, that would be worth so much to me. Of course, the flip side is presumably if I can do that to talk to them, they will also have AIs on the other side dealing with my AI, and where does it end? But
Actually,
yeah,
but Darren, that's kind of the point, isn't it? Because it's not actually anything special about you as the physical human being that's raising the problem. It's presumably to do with a property that you lived in or live in. So if that could be automatically detected and solved, then in fact there's no need for you, the physical being known as Darian Graham-Smith, to get involved at all.
yeah, well, in this case, the problem is that they have the wrong meter number on record for this property, and there's nothing I can do except just tell them over and over again, "You sent me yet another bill with the wrong meter number on it." Yeah, I mean, it's not they need some special ability or knowledge that only I have. Yeah, absolutely.
Lee.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast,
Do you
Lee.
understand how podcasts work?
Yeah. Oh, I was just easing my way into it, because I'm a bit like
How are you,
Darian.
Lee? Are you well?
I'm not.
How are things?
Not
What's
bad,
going on?
Tim. I was trying to sleep, but people keep talking to me in my ears. I honestly think I have a bit of a blind spot where this stuff is. Maybe I've got no imagination. I don't know. I looked at OpenAI's website and trying to. I mean, Barry has beautifully explained some of the examples here why this is used. But on the OpenAI website, they're still using as the example the travel planner. There's Roman who's booking flights from San Francisco to Scotland. If you read my column in the current PC Pro, you'll find out what happened when I went on a journey, and all the technology in the world could not help because suddenly whatever the system said, whether it was AI driven or not, didn't exist anymore. So this is, I look at this situation of Roman booking his travel with AI, and I think no. But obviously, who knows what facilities will be actually driving what I use. Then I looked at the agent stuff and thought, okay, this looks interesting. And they gave the example of enabling AI agents to interact seamlessly with crypto wallets. And at which point I thought, oh, good, I can't see absolutely anything going wrong at that point. So, none of this did anything for my blood pressure. So I'll just sit on the sidelines and be a very late adopter, I feel.
Okay, well, what you did just do extremely well then is remind me that the new issue of PC Pro is now on sale. And so people should probably go and buy it if they have not already subscribed. And guess what we talk about in the current issue of PC Pro? Barry, unleash AI in Microsoft 365. Brief description of that, please.
Yeah, I think we talked about it on the show a few weeks ago, in fact. But this is where we go app by app through the different Microsoft 365 apps, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, and show what the different AI tools can do, both good and bad.
We've also got a group test on Windows 10 alternatives, otherwise known as Linux distros. So if you are using a Windows 10 PC, which will, of course, I think we all know, stop being supported come October this year, then actually it's surprisingly easy to swap over to Linux these days. It's not as any means as frightening as some people think it is, and we recommend a couple of distros to do exactly that. So there you go. Those are the two main highlights from the current issue of PC Pro on sale. Right.
Charmed.
Okay, Darren. What would you like to talk about?
Well, that's the thing. I was actually just trying to work out. Are you talking about issue 367? Because I've lost track of what issue of what has come out. It looks like Tim's frozen as well, which doesn't help.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
I think that was the shock.
Oh, he's dropped off. He's. Well,
Oh, well.
why don't we?
Shall I? As it happens, the next nib is with me. So shall I?
Yeah, let's
shall
move
I?
along to
Yep,
nibs.
okay. Yep. Here's a piece of news in brief, and I don't really. I think I sort of understand it after reading it 3 times. Microsoft is retiring the remote desktop app. So if you want to use remote desktop to connect to Windows 365, Azure Virtual Desktop, or a Microsoft DevBox machine, you have to use the Windows app instead, or you will as of the end of May. But this doesn't mean it's retiring remote desktop connections, and you can still open remote desktop connections using the standard remote desktop connection tool, which is a different thing to the remote desktop app, which, to repeat, is being retired. It's ridiculous. This is one of those things, just like Microsoft 365, Office 365, where they just cannot come up with a clear way of naming and specifying things. And it drives me mad, because the underlying technologies are often quite decent. But anyway, and this is supposed to be brief, but it's just frustrating.
Rants in brief.
Yeah. New section christened. So the next one's with me, and this is a developer in the States who is about to be spending a lot of time behind bars for basically sabotaging his former employer after he left. He basically wrote a kill switch for the network that was looking up for his record in Active Directory. So as soon as he was terminated and his Active Directory profile was moved, it basically went through and started obliterating the network to various degrees. They discovered the malicious code once they called the investigators in, and this fella is about to spend a decade inside one of the US's finest establishments. So if you're planning to bugger up your company after you go, you might want to think twice about it, especially if you're in the US. Lee, last one's for you.
Yeah, some good news for Chromecast owners, specifically those with the 2nd generation Chromecast. No, I have one of these. I was going to wiggle it in front of the camera, but my camera's gone, so that's no good. If you have one of these, you may have spotted that it stopped working. It appears that Google configured the devices originally with a single 10-year authentication certificate, and that's expired. Whether they never expected these devices still be in use, or that the rolling certificate update plan was shelved, that's not really clear. Now, the great news is that Google has said they are working on a fix. They told ARS Technica, we still support Chromecast V2. Now, here's the important bit. If you have got one of these and you've noticed it stops working, don't factory reset it, because you may end up bricking it. Because if it is reset, it won't be able to connect to a mobile for a setup, and Google will have to come up with a cable fix, etc. So just leave it alone, and hopefully Google will roll something out very soon. The last update from Google was on Tuesday, saying they've identified the cause, so it sounds like they're on with it.
Smashing. Okay, apparently Tim's completely lost the internet, according to his Slack post, which makes me wonder how he's posting to Slack. But anyway, we will carry on. And luckily, Hot Hardware is with me this week, not Tim. And even more luckily for the good people of the PC Pro audience, yes, it is a keyboard. This is the Proto Arc XK-M01. And it's not just a keyboard. In fact, it's it's a folded keyboard. It's a mouse, a tiny dinky little mouse, and it also comes with a little stand for which you can prop up your tablet, your smartphone, or whatever you want. So the idea of this really is to make devices like your smartphone or your tablet more usable as a work device. It comes in a carry case, which you can see if you're looking on the YouTube feed right now. It's about, I would guess, 45 centimeters wide. It's quite a sizable thing in itself, about the same size in fact as the Steam Deck case that I've got, maybe not quite as chunky, but it's a reasonable sized thing. But if you were going away for the weekend, maybe just needed to do the occasional email or bit of work, didn't want to take a full laptop with you, just wanted to slot that in. It'd be probably smaller than trying to slot in certainly like the MacBook Pro in front of me, or most ultra-portable laptops. So as I said, this is the keyboard itself folds up. It's a sort of tri-fold design. It's a pretty comfortable keyboard to type on. I used it quite a lot when I was out at CES in January. You can connect 3 different devices to it's got 3 different profiles, so you can switch between devices. It's okay. My only real complaint about the keyboard is that there's no means to prop it up, so there's no height adjustment. It has to be laid flat on whichever surface you're using it. The other, it does have rubber feet on the edge, but it can be a bit wobbly. I'm a really heavy-handed typist, you'll be shocked to hear, and it does rattle a bit as you tap away on it. But it's a decent full-size keyboard. It's got a number pad on the side, all the shortcut keys at the top, and it folds away pretty neatly. The mouse is I really like the mouse. In fact, I often take the mouse with me more than the keyboard, because that is very slimline, easy to drop into a laptop bag. So if I'm going to work out for the day with my MacBook Pro, I often just take the mouse to use rather than use the trackpad on the laptop itself. Pretty simple in itself. Couple of buttons. There's the scroll button in the middle. Nothing extraordinary there, but it's pretty comfortable to use, and very handy if you're, like I say, working away from a day and don't want to be faffing around with a trackpad even. The whole package and caboodle will cost you 55 of your Earth pounds from ProtoArc, and there's really not much more to say about it.
Sorry, Barry, what model was it?
ProtoArc.
ProtoArc.
Which is a company I've not heard of before, but they hit me up when I was on my way to Vegas and offered a sort of test unit, and then we tested it in the field. Obviously, while I was in Vegas, I used it quite a lot. My MacBook Pro, in fact, when I was testing, and it is, even the MacBook Pro's got a decent keyboard, but if I was typing long documents and stuff or reports, it was I often got that keyboard out rather than rely on the laptop's keyboard.
Okay, so the carry case, which you waved in front of the camera. So did you say you thought it was about 45 centimeters long?
Wide. The width,
Wide. Sorry, that's and the depth that looks quite chunky as well.
Yeah, it is a little bit big. In fact, you don't look once you put those two together, and then they'll put it next to the case. It's a bit difficult to see, but you can easily just put these in your laptop bag and leave the carry case at home. I think the carry case is way too chunky for what it's containing, to be honest.
Oh, well, that's what I was going to say, because you were saying that it was convenient rather than taking a full laptop, but by volume, that thing is much bigger than just slipping my MacBook Air into a rucksack or whatever.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but I think it's you can definitely just take the keyboard and the mouse separately, and they're pretty, especially once the keyboard's folded up in that sort of transformer kind of shell. It's pretty robust. It's not going to get damaged easily. So I often just take the keyboard itself rather than the carry case.
Interesting. It feels like one of those things, unfortunately, that I'd really need to feel it under my fingers and really kind of understand kind of tactically. That's not quite what I mean, but get the tactile sense of it to really know whether it was something I'd get on with or not. I mean, you've said obviously you prefer it to your MacBook keyboard.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, just in terms of the space you've got, and the other thing is, like when I was working in Vegas, I had my iPad and my laptop with me, and using the iPad as a second screen, and it just made it more comfortable to be able to put the two screens side by side and work in the middle, kind of thing, rather than sitting here with the iPad screen off to the side. It just ergonomically that was more comfortable. So it's not necessarily the keyboard isn't fundamentally that much better than the MacBooks. It's just it makes it more comfortable to work, especially when you're using different screens.
Okay, I see that. I was just looking at the ProtoArc website, and I'm rather amused that they've come up with a list of situations where you might be able to use it, and the list is office, coffee shop, meeting room, library. Well, yeah, I mean anywhere you ever type, basically.
That's your life, Darian.
It is
Stalking
yes.
you.
Okay, go on.
No, I was to say, so it's Bluetooth and wireless.
Yes, it comes with a little dongle if you want, which is in the mouse cavity, but you can use Bluetooth as well. I don't think I've ever used a dongle, so I can't vouch for its effectiveness, but it's a wireless dongle. What could go wrong? Yeah,
I'm also-
okay.
We'll talk about that later.
I'm also just laughing again at the website. I feel like the website, the product may be very good. The website seems like it was maybe put together a bit optimistically. I see that the mouse has three, has a switch, so you can have 3 DPI settings. They've described it on the webpage as a 3 DPI mouse.
Yeah, they probably want to think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to start the poll going, and I've got a bad feeling about this on Discord. So if you're listening live on Discord, you can vote now. Darren, let's start with you.
It's a little bit more expensive than I would really like for kind of an accessory that replicates a keyboard that is already built into my MacBook. I'm not a tablet fan, so I wouldn't be walking around with an iPad or whatever wanting to type into it. But I do nevertheless, I do see the appeal of having a bigger, more spacious input device that you can. For example, you could put your laptop a bit further back and and just not be hunched over it in that same way, or I have the real mouse as well. I mean, I like to use a real mouse with my laptop, but it's a bit of a pain if it doesn't kind of work ergonomically. You know what I'm saying? Just the idea of having a fairly portable, reasonably affordable desktop kit, which which can transform the experience a bit. It's a rather highfalutin way of saying it. I like it. I really did not expect myself to be saying this. I'd still really want to try it out in person before I dropped my 55 hard-earned pounds.
Apparently, it's only 44 according to Whiteboard.
Oh my lord! Oh well, in that case, yeah, get one. No, I think it is actually hot. So yeah, you've won me over.
Living hell. Lee.
Yeah, it's not for me, as they say, but I can really see the appeal, particularly in your jet setting lifestyle, Barry, where moments in departure lounge are vital to get the stories off, and you need to be comfortable doing what you're doing, and chucking this in the bag to give you a decent sized keyboard is a nice thing. I know myself, when if you're trying to bash out a few thousand words, just having it on a keyboard that is a little sits easier under the fingers than doing it on something that's a bit of a compromise just makes life a lot easier. And given the price of it, and certainly the discount which our audience has just found, you'll pay that money for a decent quality mouse or a decent quality keyboard on their own. So it's not beyond the realms of they're not being sort of too expensive here. I like the design. I like the fact that it does Bluetooth and wireless. So yeah, I guess all in. And I like a carry case. I like a carry case. I know Darren wasn't fit, but that's a nice case. I do like a handle. Yeah, it does it for me. Win. Hot.
Wow. Well, yeah, I'm going to go hot as well. I think, like I say, I've used it pretty extensively over the last few months. Not so much with the laptop as well, but I think it has really good. Actually, if you were using a smartphone, and I don't do this very often, but we're writing stuff on a smartphone with a Word app or whatever, you can use a little stand to prop up your phone, and it's a way to, work very neatly on the move. But yeah, I think it's flexible enough and cheap enough that I would recommend it. So that's 3 hots in the studio, but Cal Surprise, the hoi polloi out there, are not quite so won over. We're currently, it's 34% to 66% on the Discord vote. So it's failed to impress the great PC Pro readership, but a clean sweep here in the studio. We're gonna have to assume Tim loved it because he can't find the internet. So thank you very much for joining us this week. We will be back, hopefully with Tim next week, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.
Bye. And goodbye to my PC Pro colleagues and everyone listening on Discord. Bye for now.